Welcome to Fractal Focus, the podcast where innovation meets entrepreneurship. And today we have a really special guest, someone who really gets down to the deeper levels of understanding how to scale your business. Not just pontifications or platitudes, but deep into the psychology of why we do what we do. And so Raheel Malik of FirstGen Agency is someone who really strives to find the deepest places, the places that we're willing either not to go or that we haven't really checked in with ourselves on before we decide to scale up a business, to prepare for an exit eventually. And so our conversation today is going to revolve a lot around purpose and revolve around a lot of understanding why. So with that, Raheel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Phil.
And so Raheel, let's give some context beyond my very basic introduction to everyone.
I'm sorry to cut you off. That was one of the greatest introductions I've ever been introduced by. So thank you.
Oh, that's good to hear. So if you can give our audience an idea of where FirstGen Agency started and also about your work and your evolution into what you have become now.
Let's start from the beginning. And again, thank you so much for having me, Phil. And thank you to the Fractal Focus podcast. Big fan, long-time listener, right? First-time caller. But let's see where to start. Yeah, I'm the son of Pakistani immigrants. We grew up in the DC metro area in Vienna, Virginia. And my family owned a travel agency for about 30 years. And I'm going to age myself, but I remember, as a child, my dad handwriting airline tickets. And then how big a deal it was when we actually got a ticket printer. And this is, in the early 90s, mid 90s, right? And these are the days where if you wanted to travel somewhere, you went through a travel agent or you went directly to the airline at the airport at the counter. But that upbringing was amazing because, Pop was pretty good at what he did, and it allowed us and afforded us to travel, like a tremendous amount from a very early age. And then my summer jobs were, doing visa, passport, and like ticket work in Washington, D.C. So I'm running around to all the embassies to get people from all over the country's visas approved so they could travel wherever they needed to go. But that I always share that story because, I think it's so important and about your background, and it answers a lot of whys into why I am the way I am. But school in Philadelphia, after school, moved back home, started my career at Wells Fargo, and was promoted to the youngest branch manager on the East Coast of selling, retail banking solutions, and leveraged that into my first technology role into a fintech role with what was then Thomson Financial, which is now Thomson Reuters. But I was on their investor relations platform, supporting that product development and launch rollout, and leveraged that into a move to Chicago after a couple of years in Boston, and then lived in Chicago for about 10 years and got laid off in the financial crisis, and was young and dumb and had a decent savings and a nice severance package. And I don't know if you know anything about the city of Chicago, but summertime shy is arguably one of the greatest places in the world. I'll fight anybody on that. And had a little too much fun over the summer, and then started when it came time to start looking for a role again. It was such a competitive market. There were so many people looking for work that, I couldn't break back into the corporate world. But my friend owned a restaurant and told me to come and make some scratch working for him while I figured it out. And, I'm not ashamed to say it's a very proud moment, but I started bussing tables and bar backing at 26, 27 years old for the first time. And I never worked harder for $1 in my life. And fast forward a year later, I was GM of a pretty high volume place in downtown Chicago. And, me and the partners and the owners ran that for about 5 years together. And I learned so much about people and why they do the things they do. During that time, my father sold his business and retired to a place called Frisco, Texas. something I had never heard of at the time, but it's a suburb north of Dallas, about 25 minutes. And they started getting older, having some health stuff. So, I decided it was time to be in the same city as them. And I'm an only child, so it had been about 15 years of living apart. So I moved down here without a job and, got into, slinging drinks again, knew that I could do that. And, planning on figuring out, well, wouldn't you know it? I got recruited to be a recruiter by one of the patrons at the bar, and taught myself oil and gas and became an oil and gas recruiter, recruiting reservoir engineers specifically. Some of the hardest roles in oil and gas. These are highly complex engineers that have to figure out how much oil is in the ground and how they're going to get it out. And had some success there, but wouldn't you know it, oil and gas went to crap around that time. So I had to spin up and start a commercial construction practice. So I had to teach myself commercial construction. Had tremendous amount of success there. And then during that time, I got recruited to go work at a cybersecurity company called McAfee. And that's really where I think I started to hit my stride, enterprise level sales, selling highly complex technology solutions to, complex clients, right? This is the enterprise level. So you're talking any, major logo that you can think of. And I loved it. It was great. I love working in cybersecurity. I still have cybersecurity clients. And I generally found my passion in that we're protecting, American assets, American interests from the bad guys, right? From bad actors that want to do us harm. From there, I went to a cloud security startup and ran a third of the country, specializing in channel and partnerships. And along that way, I got affiliated with a startup accelerator that was, a small little event happening. It's called Code Launch, but it used to be really small and just a once a year type thing. And run by a buddy of mine, and he invited me and said, hey, you should help me with this thing. You should help me host it. I said, all right, let's go. Well, we grew that into 15 events across 3 countries, and really proud of that work. But along that way, my entrepreneurial bug bit me, right? I make that joke about like Spider-Man. But, being the son of an entrepreneur and then seeing all these entrepreneurs we were helping through our multiple cohorts, it really stopped and made me think like, wow, what am I doing, right? Why work for somebody else when there's people here that can help, people that approach me, asking me for consulting services. And that's where FirstGen Agency was born. The name is a double entendre. My father owned a travel agency, so it's a homage and tribute to the agency aspect. But it's also, I like to say, like, take agency of your firstness, right? Agency being the ownership of your firstness. Lean into it, right? Like, and dive in head first, because nobody's born an entrepreneur. Nobody, everything takes work and have to work hard at it. And I'm proud to say we've been in business now, 6 years, and it's been the ride that you can imagine. Everything under the sun, up and down. But now through our partnership with the Fractal Group, it's everything that I always had envisioned it could be. The only thing it was missing was resources and a team, right? Like when you're a one-man shop, you're trying to wear a lot of hats, and some of those hats get misplaced. But that's the story in a nutshell.
I think in hearing that story, there's a lot of common threads that really intersect your timeline. One of them for me, a reflection point for sure, is definitely the work ethic. And I know that's cliche, perhaps, right? But I think when you cross so many different industries and find success in all those industries, right?
Yeah.
You end up in a place where you're in a position to help people that don't fully understand how you can help them, if that makes sense. So people tend to be segmented in their little bubbles in their industries. And when they think about scaling up their businesses, growing their businesses, they look at their industry first, as opposed to looking at other fundamentals that I think you're speaking to. And I'm curious as to, does that inform the consulting work that you're doing now? Because you went from, like, if we look back, you went from handwritten tickets with your dad in a travel agency, all the way to fintech, then to bar backing, then to oil and gas. Like, there's a lot of different industries that you've touched on. But how do you feel that informs the work that you do now, knowing that there's definitely some foundational elements of business that drove that growth and that drove that timeline?
Yeah. Wow. Never heard it put like that. Amazing. No, I think it comes from a hunger to learn and where it like I'm curious, right? I mean, I find myself like insanely curious and still like a sponge. Like, oh, what's that? Like, I call myself a classically trained sales guy, right? And we definitely have hyperactivity / attention deficit disorders and chasing squirrels. So it was always fun for me to learn something new, but as it relates to my clients, it becomes a commonality that I can share. Be like, oh, like I've done recruiting. Like I understand your problem when it comes to hiring, and it like, oh, I've done this, and let me guess, this is a pain point for you, right? So it allows me to like. One of the things I really pride myself on is putting myself in my client's shoes. Like, what's their biggest problem, right? What's stopping them from achieving their growth? What's really the blockers and the barriers there? And how do we really peel back the layers and get to the meat of it? One of the things I always tell my clients, I was like, we're never going to like just write a script or like in any of the things that we're doing, it's never going to be cookie cutter or here's your package, because it's their baby and they're the ones that are going to have to go and whether it's take it to market or eventually or scale it or eventually exit it. No one's ever going to sell that thing better than the founder, owner, operator, right? Like nobody, you can try to bring in a hired gun, but that passion is what comes through. And to that point, I think, we've got, I feel like we forget about this a lot these days, is that we probably all have way more in common than we do not, right? And remembering that and realizing that, and then how can we bring out the best for our clients in our clients?
That tells me a lot about what the relationship could look like if someone reaches out to you about approaching scale-up difficulties and approaching difficulties and pain points in the growth of their business. Do you, in your time and experience, and in addressing specific pointed blockers to being able to scale, in your consulting time, what do you find are the most common? What are the most, we just touched on some of them just now, but ironically, but what do you feel as a client approaches you are the most common blockers that they're bringing to you that you then unearth and then solve?
Yeah, that's great question. Let's see if we can whittle it down, because no client's the same. But I'll share with you, like,
right. It doesn't have to be a universal thing. It can be case by case.
Yeah, well, I'll share with you this common thread. So the last few clients we've had have been PhD level individuals, right, in science and technology, hyper smart people, right, that are building some amazing technology and tools. But how do I say it? Like salespeople or marketers, they are not, right, and that's just not their trade. It's not their skill set. It's not something that's inherent to them, but they know they need it. And I found myself aligning with them because you've already got an individual that knows, hey, I want to better myself, right? So I'll share an anecdote from one of our most recent clients. He goes, Raheel, I know what I don't know, and I know what I'm not good at. And that's why I went to get my PhD, so that I could grow and learn. And I need you because you're good at all the things I'm not, and I need your help. And I said, let's get to work, right? And it's been an amazing engagement. We had to get him ready. There was the biggest conference in his industry was coming up on, in like 45 days, and he was invited to be in their startup expo, and it's a really big deal. Big shout out to Dr. Sachs and cybercoglabs.com. But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing engagement, and we knocked it out of the park together. And I guess the biggest takeaway for me is to see his level of confidence grow in his thing that he had already built, and be able to go present it to the marketplace and present it to investors. I mean, such a huge sense of pride for me. And then, the relationship that we built, I'm hoping, he comes back and we can continue to work together for a long time as his, outsourced team when it comes to, the go-to-market and launch strategy. But that's needless to say. Common themes, what we look for is like a client's ability to know what they know and know what they don't know. I'll share with you one thing we do in all our proposals, and if anybody listening wants to snag this, feel free and leverage it in your own proposals. But at the second page of every proposal I send out, I always send out a why you, because I was dictated my clients for so long professionally that whether I was mission aligned or value aligned with them, it didn't matter. I was tasked to go sell them something, and the food on my table was contingent upon that, right? But I really like at the beginning of every proposal, I've made it so that we always talk about the why we want to work with these people, and it's under 4 categories. So I always want to know that they're proven, right? They have the credibility to do what they say they're going to do. They're subject matter experts. They're proven. They have a product market fit, and they genuinely are ready to scale. And that comes from me seeing over 1,000 startup pitches during my startup accelerator code launch days. So I know what good looks like. Then the next category is unique. I want to work with people that are building something unique, something that isn't out there, something that's defensible and differentiated. I like working, we find tremendous success working with agile clients, right? So people that are fast moving, they know something's got to happen, something's got to happen quick. And, that's how I operate. And the clients that are agile generally respond well to that. And the last one is trusted. That their credibility is established, and we just need to amplify it, right? They're trusted in the marketplace. They're trusted by their clients. And we know that we just have to, say their name from the mountaintops, and they're going to see success. So that's what we look for in clients, for them to be proven, unique, agile, and trusted. And that allows us to do, our best level of work.
I find that what I heard a lot in there was, again, if we were to reduce everything that we do in agency work or in software work, in developing product, the common themes that applied back when your dad was writing tickets and back when your dad was forming relationships, and I'm using the word relationship, is down to the core values of establishing trusting, full of integrity relationships. And that's what I'm hearing from you as what really helps a team. Because when you think about relationships isn't just, and you can definitely, this is where I'm going to ask a question that will help guide the audience into understanding why these fundamentals are so important when thinking about scaling a business, is the relationships are not just external. They're not just client to vendor or client to service or your clients. The relationships are within your team. The trust is within your team. And the environment you're creating allows for you to not only grow team, but to retain, so that you can put yourself in a better position to scale. And eventually, we're not going to talk about exiting, but put yourself in a better position to exit because you've built such a strong core. How much would you agree with that? And also, I will touch on one other point of my question is, how much besides these fundamentals, like any particular other pieces of or other things that you could feasibly recommend to a client that you're consulting would help them scale?
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. On the front end, like keeping your team happy is just as important as keeping your client happy, right? Like, and happy is a broad spectrum word, but like, I want my team to be engaged. I want them to be as fired up about the work as I am, right? And that can only come from involvement, engagement, and like keeping your team, so granularly involved in all of it, as opposed, like, I guess there's 2 types of leaders, right? And we've all seen them. The one that's like a dictator, tyrant, ruler, right? That like, here are my orders, make it happen, right? Then there's what I like to call, the collaborator, right? And the diplomat, and like, hey, look, what's the committee think? What's the group think? How are we gonna best serve this client, right? And I've always found success in the latter, right? And I've definitely worked for the former, but for myself, it's always, better together, stronger together, more successful together. So to your point, yeah, wholly agree. To anybody listening out there, I said it on an interview a few weeks ago. I like picking your partners in your business is arguably the biggest decision in business and in life, right? Is going to be the biggest decision you make. Like, that will affect your outcomes. So when it comes to your team, like building a great team around you, you have to find the motivators, you have to find what keeps them happy, and you have to find out their why. And then you should be speaking, if you're the leader of that team, you're answering for all of those things every day. That was the first question. Remind me this. I hope I answered that. Remind me the second question.
Yeah, no, that's a great first part of the answer. The second part of the question, though, is any other pointed, very specific processes, tools, other sections of a construct, for lack of a better word. I'm trying to come up with words right now, but that you would recommend to clients directly that will point them in the right direction to continue to scale? What are the other common pointed, more specific parts and sections that you would recommend to someone?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak from my subject matter expertise, right? So I call myself, and we frame FirstGen Agency as a brand and go-to-market agency. You're agents of growth. Like, our job is literally to grow and broadcast your business to the marketplace with strategy, with messaging, with socials, with brand specifically is where I really want to talk about this one, because I think it gets forgotten. And especially when you're talking to hyper technical founders, or you're very technology savvy people, the concept of brand kind of loses sight. And your brand is more than your logo, right? And if anybody listening, if I can impact one person here, your brand is you, that is personified by your business, that is on display for everyone on the planet. So no pressure, right? But it's very simple. In one of the things that we tout and the hill we die on, and the champagne we drink. I hate that term, eat your own dog food. I like drink your own champagne, but is brand continuity. Like, I don't care if it's a simple color palette, in a 3-letter logo, but it should look like that everywhere. Your pitch deck, your one pager, your proposal template, your invoice, your Instagram should look like your LinkedIn, should look like your Facebook, should look like your TikTok, should look like your Discord. Brand continuity, brand uniformity, and that goes even deeper into the messaging. One of the exercises we like to do for our clients is I'll take the C-level of an organization and I'll split them off into rooms and I'll record them each and give them 30 seconds to a minute to tell me, what is it? So simple, right? Sounds dumb, right? Like, what is it? Hey, Google, what is it? Right? What is it? And Phil, I got to tell you, I have never yet, and maybe this is what we're chasing, but I've yet to encounter like a C-suite of 3 to 4 individuals saying close to the same thing. They've said some similar things. They have their own style and nuance, but how do you, as a C-level person, why can't you explain your business to me in 30 seconds? Right? And maybe that's why I have a business, to solve for this, right? But brand continuity and then uniformity of message across your leadership team. When somebody asks you, you're out and about, what do you do? Oh, what does that mean? Oh, what is it? Do you have a powerful, impactful statement ready to answer that? And you would be blown away by, the majority. I would say the majority don't.
Which I wonder if that's something to be concerned about industry-wide or overall when we're thinking about the entry to entrepreneurship and to creating and starting a business, not to think of those things. I almost feel like that should be something that's well structured. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're just trying to address a problem first, right? And then you figure out your identity after that.
As long as you do it, right? Because the problem can come to you beforehand. But I think you're right. And as people get really myopic, right? Because they feel like this is gold. I've done it, right? Eureka. Like, why everybody's going to want this. Everybody's going to buy it. Wrong. You can't fall flat, right? No sales. Why? Why can that be? I've got the greatest, shiniest, most amazing new widget that ever was, but nobody's buying it. Well, yeah, that perception is yours and yours alone, right? Because you built it and you found it and you made it and it solved a problem that was giving you a lot of pain. That doesn't translate into everyone else on the planet, right? So you're asking almost a chicken and egg question, right? It's like, do I solve the problem first or do I figure out the mission statement and what the problem is first, right? And I'll share with you, like, wherever you come to in that journey, out here, listeners, right? If you've solved the problem already, great. Go back and reverse engineer, your why, your background, your credibility, your subject matter expertise, and create that narrative and tell me the story of how this came to you, right? And if you've got a really good business idea and you're working on the technical side of it, then great. Figure that part out. And as long as the technology part of it is feasible, then write your story, right? And where is this thing and where is it going?
And I want to think a big part of this conversation is always going back to you mentioning how myopic founders can be, business owners, people that start businesses can be, is really doing a full product discovery, right? And I want to know, how deep do your services really go insofar as not only brand identity, really marketing your mission, communicating what you're doing, but also that product market fit, that discovery? Do you want to find clients? Because I know we talked about trust and we talked about integrity and we talked about working with someone that you can form a good relationship with, but actionable items, I would imagine, include someone you would want to work with that's already figured out some things, right? That they have actually done a product discovery. Or are you willing to work with people that come to you with literally a vacuous idea of what they want to do, right? It's kind of like amoeba, if you will.
Yeah.
But then you're trying to help shape that for them. So if you could tell our listeners that are even thinking about starting a business, how deep would FirstGen Agency be able to go to help them? And maybe this is not even a question of scaling at this point. This is a question of actually starting the business in the first place. So how would you be willing to take steps back if a client approaches you and you do an assessment and then you identify, hey, you haven't done a good product market fit. You have not understood what your competition matrix looks like. You haven't done enough research. I can't help you. Or is it, hey, you really haven't done a lot of this work. Let's do that together.
Yeah. So the cold-blooded business answer that my wife wants me to give always is how much money you got, right? And what's your budget? Because I used to give it away for free for so long, and I told you I wanted to help people, right? And I enjoyed helping people, and you start out early and you want to help as many people as you can. And I certainly did my share of that. And I jokingly say that is because, to your question about how deep can we go, that's the best part about, I believe, in what I'm most proud of with FirstGen Agency is that through our strategic partnerships in the Fractal ecosystem, we can go, so deep into, technology feasibility, right? Design, architecture, through our partnership with FYC Labs, like we can get as granular with the technology side of it, of this thing you're trying to create as anyone can, and we can start it as high level from a concept or a napkin, and create a competitive analysis, create a competitive landscape. What industries are these? Who are the top players in this? Excuse me. What do their brands look like? We can do all of that. You just have to have the budget for it, and that's where it kind of gets a little tough when someone's starting out. But a lot of that, I think the ones that are successful, it's funny in technology, you see it. The ones that are successful are either fully blindly they're like, we're going to figure it out, and we're just going to chase the moon, and we're going to chase, and we're going to fight, and we're going to win clients, and we're going to do whatever we have to do, and we're going to build this plane while we fly it. Or they're hyper analytical and hyper prepared before they even take a step out of the door to introduce it. But there's not a lot of middle ground, right? Does that make sense? So you got to pick which way you're going to be. You're either going to and have your customer base, right? I always tell people that, like, you got to leverage your subject matter expertise. Like, I'll just share a quick anecdote. Like, there was a startup that presented to me. They were looking for funding, and they thought they had it. And the technology and what they were building, it was like, in concept, was pretty good. They were trying to revolutionize house call medicine, right? Like the days of the doctor coming to your house. But their background was in maritime sales. And I go, guys, like, does anybody have a medical degree? Is there anybody with a medical degree on the board of advisors or on the executive committee or anything? And they go, no, we just had this idea. My wife's a nurse. I go, okay, well, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think you're the guys to do it. And I had to give them that hard truth, right? Because you guys are in the business of selling ships, right? Like, you're not in the business of home health care. So how can we justify this? And they're like, but it's going to work. And I go, good luck to you, right? Like, I hope it does. So you've got to do your legwork. And like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty. But it has to be the same. It has to be uniform. And the modern age, we live in 2026, right? Like, you leverage the best boss I ever had, that I didn't know she was the best boss I ever had until I had like 2 bad bosses after her. She always said, leverage your unfair share of resources, right? Go ask that friend who works at that company for that favor. Like, leverage your resources, right? You don't even know what resources you have. Like, go leverage your unfair share of resources to set yourself up for success.
I definitely imagine a part of the journey in the position you're in, and after hearing all of that, is what do you define your success in your work through these clients, right? Like, how do you define that success? Because in one hand, you can do as much as you can to help with their brand identity, to help with whether they are in the beginning of their journey, the middle, or near the end. But for you on a personal level, what do you find as a successful, I'm willing to put this on the website, or I'm willing to put this in a case study? How do you define what that success story looks like? And or do you also say or openly communicate, hey, we've helped these people get through this hump. They're not quite scaled up fully, but we've helped them in this component of their business or this part of their business. Like, where do you find those success stories to be common that helps not only tell your story to a prospective client, but that could potentially help other clients you decide to onboard?
Yeah. This is a tough one. What instantly came into my head, and I've learned a long time ago, trust your gut. I want my clients to be proud of our work. Like, I want them to be proud, right? The messaging, what they see on the web about their business, I want them to look at that and be proud. That logo we created, that they wear that on their chest. They wear a different shirt, branded shirt every day because they're so proud of their logo and they want to have it on display. They're so proud of their website built with our partners at FYC. They're so proud of their product and how it works. Like, I want them to feel pride, because if they're proud of it, they can go, take down some big customers, right? They can land some big partnerships because, pride equals belief, right? And then all of that resonates in the sales call. All of that resonates in the investor room. All of that resonates in that big, bake off that you're having with, 3 other competitors to win that business, right? It all resonates, but it starts with pride. And and it's hard to quantify, right? If any investors are listening, I know we can't raise money on pride of clients, but that's how I look at it, right? That they're confident to walk into that room and the work that we've done together. And I've seen that, more often than not. And if you're blessed to have a few, PhDs, 2 of them right off the bat, that have provided testimonials to that. And it gives me pride, right? That I enabled their pride.
Yeah, that would be like a pride snowball.
Yeah. Right.
Cascading pride, maybe.
Yeah, pride wave.
Pride wave. That's a good one. Yeah, I love that association. And I think I imagine, especially for what you're doing, it is about meeting people where they are, getting them to a better place, and that becoming the success story, right?
Sure is.
As long as there's progression. And I'm thinking about, as we near the end of this conversation or close to it, what do you feel is the most important part of an entrepreneur's process, and more so journey, in their work and in their product or in the thing they're building? Because I think a lot of what we're talking about, even beyond the details, is the journey. It's the process. And so what do you feel is the most important part of the journey or process of an entrepreneur? What to you feels like the key thing? If nothing else, if every product they try to build fails, if every single opportunity or chance is a closed door until they finally hit that open door, but throughout that process or throughout their journey, what is the most important part of that?
Yeah. And again, instantly what came into my head is what's their why? Why are they in this? Like, why? So it sounds so dumb and simple, right? But shout out to Joey Sanchez in Houston and Cup of Joey. But I got this one from him. Like, he used to hold this round table, and part of what they would do at this round table is go around and ask everyone what's their why. And earlier I said I want to help people and I want to make money, right? I want to make money helping people. That's my why. As stupid, simple, dumb as I can make it, right? What do I want to do on this earth? So what's your why? And if you think about, like, if people can lean in and really articulate what's their why, then that you were talking about snowball or cascade, right? That snowballs and cascades into passion. That snowballs and cascades into work ethic. That snowballs and cascades into innovation. So yeah, like, figure out what your why is and why you're willing. Because you know, think about all the sacrifices I've made. You've made. Any entrepreneur listening on this has made, like, time away from family, struggling. Like, your friends with cushy corporate jobs are you know, getting ahead and buying their second or third homes, right? And you've got this belief system that you've got this, but what's your why, right? Well, you know that your why is going to pay off because of your purpose is good and your mission is good. And do you want to, like, for me, that I'm saying, speaking for myself, right? Like, I want to make money, I want to help people. And I think all of that will go around and, you know, eventually come back to me and my family, and we'll be just fine. Like, success, quote unquote, will be a byproduct of that. And that's my why.
I feel like that's a kind of great place to end in a way.
Wow,
because
leave them with it. Okay, sure.
I think because ultimately, before anybody ever approaches you, regardless of where they are in their building their business, they need to know why. Like, ultimately, even at the very, very beginning, even before they do a product market fit survey, even if before they do user journey analysis, even before they've written their first P&L statement, as an operations person, yeah, that's part of, you know, what I do. Have they started, before they started considering all those things that we have to do to build a business? Why? Because it is so arduous. The journey to become a successful entrepreneur is extremely arduous. And if someone decides to do this, right, you're giving up a level of security, a level of stability, and you're foregoing the typical 9-to-5 life, which is more stable. And some would argue, maybe they could flip it back to me, and you could definitely flip it back to me now. Well, I mean, there are layoffs happening every day. Maybe that is not as stable as we thought, right? Where it's like, maybe this difficult road I must take is the one I must take. So I think why is a good place to leave us. But of course, we're not going to just leave it there. We're not going to do the cliffhanger complete like that, right? Mm-hmm. What we want to do is tell people how they can reach out to you about FirstGen Agency and how you can help them grow their business.
Yeah, wow. And thank you for the time today, Phil. Thank you for having me on Fractal Focus. And yeah, it's super simple. FirstGen.agency, FirstGen.agency. And there's a contact form there. Reach out, team@firstgenagency.com. And yeah, feel free, reach out, find me on LinkedIn. It's Raheel S. Malik. Add me. I'm very available and excited to speak to anyone that heard this episode. Thanks for listening this long.
I love that. Thanks for listening. That's great. I think more than anything else, I hope people took notes and are curious. I love these conversations as the starter, right? You never want to answer all the questions, because then we're not doing FirstGen Agency. Someone just plays this podcast and then they're off to the races.
Right.
So with that, I want to thank the audience for listening. We are just for some housekeeping, we are in a kind of season 2 of the podcast. We kind of took a long break. Now we're back in the flow. The first episode before this, if you're listening now, is an episode on operationally what you should do for your business. So it's just me talking to you. So that can maybe put you to sleep, or you can actually be in front of a spreadsheet or in front of a note taker and take notes on how to prepare yourself for a great Q1 2026. We're past that now at the point of this interview, but certainly you can still take an assessment of your Q1. With that, we're going to have some other great guests, a preview. We're going to talk to an amazing designer. So we're going to talk about design. We're going to talk about the importance of UI and UX in your product. And then we're going to dive into some other places and be more pointed on growing business, and especially in these challenging times. We are going to be in challenging economic times. So the question becomes, how do you adjust and how do you pivot? So we will probably have episodes that will help address that. With all of that being said, Raheel, what a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for taking the time with us today. And with that, continue to grow your business, continue to ask questions, and always, always innovate. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Fractal Focus. We hope you found valuable insights. If you enjoyed the conversation and want to stay updated on the latest trends and expert advice, make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your support helps us continue bringing you the content that drives your business forward. Until next time, keep innovating and stay ahead of the curve.